Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. Hockey season is not over, but unfortunately the hurricane season is. But hopefully it's been it's been almost a week now. Hopefully people have calmed down a little bit, are taking it all in. The fact is, Ray, without Svechnikov, I know they lost Patches, even though he wasn't really part of the game plan most of the year. And then having Teravainen go down, I think getting to the Eastern Conference Finals is a big deal. So I still feel, mission accomplished for the season, given those things that have happened.
It was funny. I've been moving the goalposts a lot. You know what I mean? Because when we started this season with everything laid out in front of us, I was looking at Stanley Cup final. That's where we call the season a success. If we fall short, then it was a failure. And as the events of the season and playoffs actually came around, I kept moving. You look at the situation and you say, okay, what's a reasonable request based on all of the facts? And the fact that they were able to get to the Eastern Conference final, even though they were swept, it is a successful season based on everything that had happened. And they got through that, and especially they got through the second round, which had become a bit of a speed bump for the team. It still hurts like heck, make no mistake. And I couldn't have agreed more with Rod and the captain and virtually everyone on the team when they said, we know we were swept, but it doesn't feel like a sweep. And you look at any other sweep, there's always blowout games. I don't know how many times it's ever happened in the past, but this is the lowest possible goal differential between teams that you can have in a 4-game sweep. 4 goals.
I agree. I mean, was it a sweep technically? Sure. But, and the people who were giving Rod a hard time about his comments can't read between the lines or,
Yeah.
At no point, I mean, normally when you see a sweep, you have one team that is clearly better than the other one.
Dominant.
Right? It's just dominant. It's just, there's not anything there. And this was quite the opposite.
Exactly. Because, and let's face it, Carolina, and this might sound bias, but it isn't. I think it's reasonable to say that Carolina dominated 70 to 75% of every single game. They controlled the play. They had all of the opportunities. They had the Panthers on their back foot. In game 3, you'll love this. You'll love this because I know you enjoy EPL and Crystal Palace. They parked the bus in front of the net as far as defensively goes. And that's a football/soccer phrase where basically you make zero effort to score a goal and you park the bus in front and just force them to take as many shots as they can, but they're not going to score. And that's how Florida played in the third game, the 1-0 shutout. And right. We had the chances. It could have been so great, but it didn't work out. And what do you do? What do you do with all of that?
Right. And for me, it comes back to power play, 14.3%.
Oh,
the penalty kill, 71.4, which doesn't, I mean, obviously that's not up to their standard, right? They're normally the high 80s, mid to high 80s. But when
they were in the 90s.
Right. But when you think about the fact that you had 4 1-goal games, that's 71.4%. Did you win?
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's
Oh
nothing
yeah.
else to it. They won their face-offs, right? 54, I think, percent, 55%.
Like how
Goals
many of
for
those? Yeah,
6.
how many of those power play goals were scored within the first 30 seconds of the power play?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of them were not even 5 seconds in, and they scored.
Yeah,
And it's like you got to win the draw to control the play, and it's something that we've done forever. But
that is a series where you just don't get the breaks at
no,
all. I mean, that's they could have won 2 or 3 of those games had
yep.
it gone a quarter inch, a half inch the other way, right? Crossbars, nets. I mean, Florida had those chances too. It's
Oh, they did, and
you know,
Anderson was sensational. Like
Anderson
no,
was phenomenal.
he was
This is why you brought
wow.
Anderson is. You
Yep.
got to see Anderson do exactly why they brought him in.
Yeah.
Finally.
No
Right.
question. What I wonder. I mean, and there's lots to talk about in the future or whatever. I wonder if for Jarvis, who like in overtime had that beautiful open net and clanked it off the crossbar. He had him beat, couldn't beat the crossbar. I wonder if something like that didn't get in his head, where he just, like that was just turning over and over and over in his head. Mm-hmm. I really wonder.
I think all the guys just, it's one of those things, like when you start getting golded, you just start, gripping your stick a little tighter, right? You're not loose out there. The good or bad news for Florida is the Hurricanes put up a fight the last game, and prove like, Bobrovsky. For newer fans, I think people need to understand Bobrovsky had perhaps the greatest playoff performance of a goalie in a series in history, just about. I mean,
I would say since Hasek against who.
And that's rarefied air. I mean, that's
still
saying something, right?
Hasek is otherworldly. I've always appreciated his ability and play, and those are the kind of saves that he was making too. He was kind of making Hasek saves as well. And if you know, like that's the style and the way that he would stop the puck. It was any means necessary.
In 4 games against the Hurricanes, he had a .966 save percentage and a 1.12 goals allowed on 168 saves. I mean, if you go back and could find me a better series from a goaltender than that, you might find a couple. You might find
maybe
2. You might find, and we're talking 100 years in NHL history. So
you got to tip your cap. What I had said, and it's gonna, maybe this is, my last kick at the cat as far as this goes, pun intended, is I stated we didn't get swept by the Panthers. We got swept by Bobrovsky.
Yeah.
And that's really, I mean, yeah, they had to score the goals, but the amount of effort and the amount of stops, he was, I think, plus 11 in one of their plus 12 in one of those stats where
goals saved above it.
That's right. Goals expected by or whatever. I can't remember. Analytics really confuses me a lot of times, but it's like that one made perfect sense. Carolina could have scored 12 more goals than they should have, which easily would have routed.
Yeah. I mean, when they're all
routed the Panthers
1-0, 2-1, 3-2 games.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
We'll come back. We'll have a real season wrap up here in a few weeks.
For sure.
Unlike teams who must not be named and their reporters, hockey season does, and then when my team gets eliminated.
Nope.
We have hockey.
Not for me either.
We have
in
the Cup finals. I don't put my toys away and go home. So
Yeah,
If you're a fair weather fan north of the border, and that's what you do, good. Jump on the
that's
bandwagon next year. But
yeah.
what we do have are questions.
I love Q&A sessions. We
I
should have more of these. It's fantastic, and and normally I would save this to the end of the podcast, but I'm going to put it out there right now. I just want to say thank you to all of the guests who not only asked us questions, but who joined us, all of our listeners who are making this such a wonderful experience for the both of us. We have
absolutely
connected with, and it's going to sound a little hyperbolic, but it's like we've developed a family. There's some great people that we met in person and that we've had on the show, and they feel like family now.
Absolutely.
And I love it. And I love it.
And you know what gets me every time, Ray, is when I look at the analytics. So we've been doing this just over 2 years. We started this, I think, in the second round, started the second round last year, no, 2 years ago.
Yes.
So 2021 in the second week of May.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, we've done 70-ish episodes, 75 episodes.
Yep.
We've had over 7,000 listens, and I did the math, and it works out to somewhere around it over a 365-day year. If you were just assume an even number of listens per day since we started the podcast, it's just over 20 listens per day.
That's fantastic.
Day. That's phenomenal. I always joke, like when I first asked you this, is that we might get 20, people listen total.
Yeah. And it didn't matter to us because we found something that we loved or whatever. But I think we also, I think the best part of our show, it's one of the things that I've been trying to let people know that I speak to here in Calgary, in Alberta, all the rest of it. You have no idea how great the Caniacs are, how much fun they are, how knowledgeable they are. Yes, there's some strange ones that, just like every 100%. But this is different. And we were able to shine a light on the reason why I say that.
Absolutely. And that's, I always come back to those numbers, but it really is about, out of 75-ish shows, I think we've had close to 50 guests.
It's so good.
The stories of 50 Caniacs, like that, people have tuned in, and those are the episodes that typically get better ratings
from all over the world
in terms of subscribers and all. And so, this summer we'll start asking for people, for next year, right?
Yep.
I mean, I'm in for a third season, technically a fourth season.
Totally. I can't imagine doing a season like right now. I can't imagine a season without it. You know what I mean? Right. Without a chance to get together and talk with Caniacs and break down this team and talk about them. And we have.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and we have a ton of questions. We put the word out. We said, hey, we're going to do a Q&A, and all of a sudden, kapow, we've got a bunch to get to. Do you want to get started? Should we do this?
Let's do it. Yeah, let's. I know that you have several questions from the folks over at the Surgecast.
Yes.
Zach, Bailey, and Kat, who,
amazing.
We've gotten a chance to meet in person.
Yep.
Which was really awesome at the Stadium Series game. Fantastic folks over there. Love their podcast. So yeah, why don't we start with their question?
All righty. So the first one we got from Zach, and this is a very poignant one. It's going to put us on the spot a little bit. If you could only bring back 3 guys to re-sign, who would you pick? And I look at this and say, wow, there's a lot of choices here. And it's not necessarily not everyone's going to agree. But I think as far as the 3 for me goes, and it's tough separating these ones.
I assume this is not just 3 people. This is just 3 people who need to be re-signed. Yes.
Correct. Yeah, we're talking about
agents of some kind. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm clarifying that I understood the question correctly.
The UFAs that we have and the RFAs, of those, which 3 do you prioritize? And for me, I say Jordan Staal, I say Max Pacioretty, and I say Freddie Anderson. And we can do all the other names, we can survive without. Now, part of the reason that I say that is because 2 of those players are very likely to take haircuts in re-signing, which means we can get them on the cheap and keep our salary cap larger to give us more options. Jordan Staal not going to make $6 million. I would like to sign him for 2 years at 2.5 to 3. I would say is fair and reasonable. It's not slapping him in the face. You know what? I'd go 2.5 to 3.5. I would say the fact that he has openly said that he wants to stay means I think we could be reasonable with that. Re-signing Pacioretty, again, he's not going to get as much as he got last season because he was injured virtually the entire time, and he has to take a haircut to get onto the ice. I would sign him for 1 season at $4 million is where I'd go, which seems reasonable because he was 7 last year, correct? That was his. So yeah, 1 year at 4, because I want to see him on the ice. And my last pick, Freddie Anderson, I wouldn't have picked unless he put out the performance that he did in the playoffs. What we saw there, and because Kochetkov is not quite ready yet, I want Freddie back. And will he come back? It's hard to say because we saw it, but so did every other GM in the league. And if he wants to put his name out there and make some dough, he probably could, based on the performance in the playoffs alone, even with the injury issues. What do you think, Brad? Who are your 3?
I think you're pretty close. So Jesse Puljujarvi is an RFA. I think at $3 million, it's not worth the risk. If they can sign him for cheap and turn him into a project like KK, then that might be it. But he's not one of my have to haves, right? Also leaving from the forward group potentially is Fast, McEachern, Statstein, and Stepan. Of those, Jordan Staal is the one guy you bring back. Like you said, it's not going to be like a $6 million deal again. It's probably going to be for somewhere like half of that. But that's of the forward group. He's the only concern. From the defensive group, Coughlin and Lajoie are both RFAs. DeHaan is an unrestricted free agent, and Gustis Bear is a UFA, but he's basically already said he's going to test the market. Not that he's not open to coming back, but he's going to see what kind of bucks he can make. I'd love to have him back, but I'm with you. I think, same thing. I don't think that he's a critical piece, although
I'd have him on more if he didn't break his stick all the darn time.
If you asked for 4 people, he would be 4, I think.
Yeah. My 4th would have been Jesper Fast.
I would love to have Fast back. Right, this is definitely not a who do I not want, but if I'm having to pick 3, right? Goaltenders Anderson, Ranta, and actually Sachenko are all unrestricted free agents. This is where it gets sticky for me.
Yeah.
Anderson has been more injury prone. Ranta actually puts up better numbers, but it reminds me of the scene in Miracle where they're talking about, oh, you're gonna have, Janicek, backing up the other guy. And they're like, no,
Yeah.
have you ever seen him? I heard his game's on. He's like, but have you ever seen him like when it is on? And that's what you get with Anderson, right?
Yeah.
Like when he's on, he can be, he literally ran into the one goalie who outplayed him. Like, in anybody else that didn't have that kind of phenomenal series,
Yeah.
Anderson's the MVP of the series.
Yes.
So, choosing between Anderson and Raanta is really tough for me.
Oh, no question.
I definitely thought Raanta would early on. I definitely said it would be Raanta, mostly because I think other GMs will offer Freddie the money to leave. But if he wants to stay here and he knows what's up, then that's a big. The other part of the goalie situation that people are not talking about is because I still see people saying we need to re-sign both of them. I don't think there's any chance that they're going to re-sign both of them. And I'll give you 2 million reasons why. Kochetkov makes $2 million next season.
Yeah.
That is regardless of where he plays.
Yeah.
You're not going to stick Kochetkov in the AHL for $2 million a year. Not happening. Kochetkov will be in Raleigh next year. There's 2 million reasons why you will either get Raanta or Anderson or somebody new. You're not getting them both. So,
Someone was throwing the name, is it Swayman, who is in Boston? Is a free agent, or is it Ullmark?
I think it's Swayman, and they can't afford him. It could be Ullmark. Either way, like I don't see how they can afford him. They're already in a cap crunch, right? So,
yeah.
So somebody's going to pick up Anderson or Raanta, whomever you don't do. Jake Gardner comes off the books. Andre Kasha comes off the books. That leaves Max Pacioretty. I agree, and I'm going to say this too. So Max Pacioretty, we didn't get to see much of him. However, I think he's the right kind of guy. I think he's a good fit. I think it is worth the risk if he can play. And I saw a story posted yesterday that he just sold his very nice mansion from Vegas. So He's out of Vegas. He sold his house. He said, my kids love it here. Like my kids are in school, like, the whole shebang. So now he could buy a house anywhere, but I think it says something that he sold his house in Vegas, that he's moved on from them. That's not a destination or anything. I see, I would be interested to see if he buys a house in Raleigh this summer.
Man, that would be something.
So I think we have the same three guys. The only if you get Anderson or Raanta, I don't think there's a huge difference between those two guys. I think Anderson ultimately gives you the better chance to win, but Raanta, when you look at the numbers, and I know Colin from Home Ice Advantage pointed this out, like Raanta is a rock star in Raleigh. So
yep.
I would take either of those guys, but like I said, I feel very confident you're not going to see both. That's the only part that I'm going to kind of say guaranteed you're not getting them both back. That's a fantastic question, because
it was very
tough.
Good one from one true Zach of the Surge Cast.
What's up with that?
I'm going to move things over to Cat Hunter, Caniac Chick. Who were you most surprised by during the playoffs? Good or bad surprise? Now,
I think this is an easy one for me.
Is it? Go ahead, fire away.
Jordan Martinook. Round 2, Jordan Martinook. If he played like that in the Eastern Conference Finals and in the Stanley Cup Finals, or even close to that level, that's a Conn Smythe looking. You're in the talk, at least on a national level. Jordan Martinook I didn't know he could be that good. He puts in the work and all, and it was kind of one of those things where he does that. It wasn't like he was playing any differently than he normally does, but everything was falling for him. So, maybe it's a little puck luck, but Jordan Martinook went off on the New Jersey Devils. It was embarrassing.
He did. He absolutely did. if I were to pick a surprise, Martinook is the surprise, really. Like, he was just sensational. And when, Jordan, Martinook, Gretzky, that Gretzky comment that came just 2 seconds before he went top shelf, like, that was just so great. And so I thoroughly enjoyed it. If I'm going to pick a surprise, I'm going to say that really it was how poorly the penalty kill went in the third, where we were in the 90s and like doing great, playing, like, just shutting down a really talented team. Like, think about that. We were at 90% against the New Jersey Devils, who had like plenty of scoring and plenty of opportunities, and we were able to shut it right down, like virtually completely. So to see it dissipate the way it did in the third round, I think it was kind of a shock. I was like, what's going on, guys? We know how to deal with this team. Why aren't we doing it? And it just didn't work out. So to me, that was a bad surprise. And like I said, as far as the good ones go, Martinook through and through. There is no question about that. In fact, I was, during the first couple of rounds, you could have said the power play was a good surprise as well, too, because they're actually scoring and getting points. But it just wasn't enough. So another great question there. Now, here is our last one, and it's from Bailey. So she says she would love to hear our thoughts on what could have been the big tide turner to make the series go a little more in favor, instead of being the closest sweep I've ever witnessed as a hockey fan. It's the closest sweep that I think virtually any hockey fan has seen in forever. I don't recall one in my time.
Like Kane Stats or somebody find a closer series than this.
Yeah, or at least, Tyler, the last time it may have happened at one point in the past, but I don't believe I've ever seen it in my lifetime. No. And I'm 52. So there you go. What could have been the tide turner? I know what my answer is, and it's going to sound bad because it's my questioning Rod and his selection for the lineups. Ooh. I wonder if juggling the lineup so it was kind of even all the way across, where there was a little grit, there was a little hard work and forechecking and a little scoring on every line. We did not see the return of Fost, Martinook, Stahl, which was a great shutdown line. We spread those assets out, and I wonder if by spreading the assets out the way we did, if that didn't minimize the chances. For instance, KK playing alongside Natchez. Would that have done something for Natchez or not? He was playing beside Jordan Stahl, fantastic, right? But on the third line, it was, if I recall correctly, it was Drury and Stahl and Natchez. And that's not enough to get Natchez going. We saw how great he was. And here's the thing. When he was with KK and Svechnikov, they were lights out together. fantastic. Losing Svetch may have been the biggest part that affected Natchez in making him disappear kind of the way he did.
Mm-hmm.
But putting him on the third line in that situation and taking him away from KK may have been more. So I think if we had gone back to the lines that were used to seeing rather than spreading it out, I think that might have been the difference. But who the heck am I? I'm not Rod Brindamore, and he would know better, and he knows what he was after. But that's my choice.
It's a good choice too, right? I mean, Nate just finished the season with 74 points, I think. There's been some just silly, and I do mean silly, trade talk on Twitter about Mitch Marner for Natchez and Natchez, I think, and Teravainen, or Natchez and Slavin. That's the one that really made me laugh. I'm like, you think you're getting Jacob
Slavin
It's like
in your dreams.
Natchez had 20 fewer points and cost half as much money. Like, ridiculous. Long story short, I would want to have two answers. Like, my real answer is with Andrei Svechnikov, I think that the Hurricanes are in the Stanley Cup Finals, and this is all a moot point.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that the question really isn't allowing me to go back that far.
Right.
I think much like in 2002, it was the 4 overtime loss, and I know it's the first game of the series, but when that happened, I immediately had PTSD. I was like, oh my gosh, not again.
That's
And
such a valid
none of
point.
these players were playing then. I mean, some of these guys were probably barely born then.
Yeah.
It feels that way. I mean, certainly Jarvis.
Jarvis wasn't. Yeah, 100%.
But it's just one of those things where Florida comes out of that on a high. The Canes coming out of that, we should have won it in overtime early. In that first overtime. Although Florida had that goal called back too, right? But
I'm gonna put you on the spot.
There's just a psychological barrier that I think affected the series from that.
Brad, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do you wish they had allowed that Florida goal rather than recalling it and going to 4 and losing?
Looking back, I think that would have been the better outcome for the Kings. 100%. I think that if that goal stands, you lose the game, which you end up losing anyway, but you just recharge your batteries. You get Anderson in game 2, who was phenomenal. Different series. I 100% now would say I wish that goal would have stood. Absolutely.
There you go. So many people said it, and I was thinking, do you guys not understand? This is a Rod Brindamore club. These guys have fought through so much. And playing an extra game, they're going to understand and get at it. But you're right. There's more to it mentally.
The only other goal I would have changed is the very last goal of the series, which how that's not goaltender interference. I forgot. A former goaltender on Twitter, I forgot who it was, who played in the NHL, was posting screenshots and things, and you can see the stick
is there.
The stick's right under Anderson's right thigh. It's there.
He put it there on his own. How
the NHL would let that stand to end a 4-game ECF is beyond me. But I don't want to get too deep down that rabbit hole because I'm mad about it.
Yeah, that is and Henrik Lundqvist said it as well. And got mocked on camera. He got mocked for taking that stance. He's a goaltender. Of anyone on that bloody cast that were there reviewing the game, he's the only one that has a valid opinion as to what it is, because he's experienced it too.
Yeah, that was a travesty of a way to end that.
It certainly was. So the Surgecast, these are the type of questions that we just love, and the caliber of those questions are the reason why you should be listening to Surgecast when you can as well. So let's pump their tires a little bit, because the SurgeCast,
Absolutely.
they are fantastic, amazing questions. But we didn't just stop there. We've got a lot more coming at us, Brad.
We do. So Mikey in the DFW, who's been on the show.
Yeah.
So Mikey said, "Does Jordan Stahl have to retire or sign elsewhere in order for us to see on him, or in order for us to stitch the C on number 20 specifically?" Number one, I don't think Jordan Stahl is going to sign anywhere. I think at this point in his career, he's kind of said, like, if he's not playing in Carolina, I think he's just gonna call it a career. But he'll be back. I have no doubt he'll be back. I so to answer Mikey's question directly, yes, I think Jordan has to be gone. I don't think Jordan's not going to be the cat. I don't think anybody's going to expect Jordan to give up the C while he's here. I personally don't have this undying need for Aho to wear the C that some people have. And I'm not trying to put this on Mikey, but I see a lot of people like, Aho has to be the next captain. Aho has to be the next captain. He doesn't. He's already a leader in the locker room. He's already doing all those things. I don't think he needs to be the captain, because he's got enough pressure with the offense relying so heavily and falling on his shoulders. You have other options, I think, at captain. I think, the other people point out would be Jacob Slavin, right?
Yeah.
So I am not that worried personally about Aho becoming the next captain or ever a captain. I don't think it's a slight on him. I don't think it's meant to be that way. And a lot of teams do make kind of their best scorer their captain, but Aho's already a leader in that locker room, right? You give him the C out of respect. Sure, I get that part. It's not going to change for me. I don't think it changes anything in the locker room dynamic or anything about the way anybody plays. So I don't know. For me, it's kind of a non-issue.
Yeah. And for me, what I would say is that it is Jordan Stahl's decision whether he wishes to hold that captaincy on his own. He will be the one to decide if he wants to carry it or not. Because I could see him come back, and perhaps in his last contract, he might say it's time to transition. He's still a leader in the locker room the same way Aho is. So he might choose to give up the C to someone else in order to do a transitional thing. So I think, it's not a matter of retirement or, going to a different team or whatever. I think it's totally his decision at this point, and Rod would respect him. He'll say, look, you resign, it's yours if you want it. And if he says, yeah, you know what, I'm happy still being the captain, great. If not, they might have an actual discussion as to who it should go to. And if I was picking, how much I love Aho. I don't call him Ron Francis 2.0 for nothing. But to me, Slavin is the next captain, in my humble opinion.
Those two guys differently, but
he is
100% right. I think that he gives up the C whenever he decides to get the C.
Yeah,
I think it's entirely on Jordan Stahl.
It's not going to be Paul Maurice pulling it off of Brindamore the way that happened. That's not going to happen. Rod,
ugly.
It is still ugly, and so yeah.
I also don't
Rod will let
him personally.
Rod will let Stahl make that decision. That's a great question, though.
It is. And I like it. Like I said, I'm not trying to bag on Mikey, but I see a lot of people like, it's got to be Aho. It's got to be Aho, and I'm like, it doesn't for me.
No,
a captain is important when, to pick on the Leafs. If you have, an Austin Matthews, a John Tavares making $12 million, and they are the key of the other key pieces, fine.
Yeah.
This team is built as a team, right? There's not a captain. We've even carried 3 alternate captains and no captain before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just the way this team is built.
Yeah, for sure.
The C versus the A, I don't think it makes a big difference.
Leadership comes from everywhere in all shapes and sizes, and everyone has that, whatever. And what I would say, and this is something that might fly under the radar, but a guy like Jordan Stahl as the captain, who is usually called upon to do the chatting with the officials and all of the rest of it, I'm sorry, Stahl carries more weight than anyone on the team as far as having these discussions and going on. It's a slight thing, but it's there.
Yeah.
It's there. He carries a little bit more weight. So great question.
Yeah. Chrissy Novak. I really like this one because I have a short but sweet answer. Chrissy asked, how do we get out of this end of season funk? I'm not a drinker, as we all know. I would say tacos or ice cream. There's nothing else. It's, now realistically for me, it's to do what I'm already starting to do, which is I'm already starting to go through cap friendly, and I see that the Canes are under the cap for like they're below the floor for next year. Oh, we got contracts, so we don't have to deal with LTIR money next year.
Yeah.
For me, I'm already starting to go into the 23-24 season. But for by the same token, it's less of an obsession once your team is out. It's not like I'm looking at my phone going, oh yeah, we got a game tonight, we got a game tomorrow, we got a game in 3 days. It's still there. But I'm starting to okay, well now I can kind of take a step back, look at the season, let's look at the numbers, let's see who's available, and start gearing up because the draft will be here in a month.
So. Yeah. I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial. I think that the pain that we are feeling after this Eastern Conference final and the way it went is truly disappointing. However, change which camera you're looking at it from. This was an amazing season. How exciting was it? Is there really a funk that we're in? We're sad that we didn't make it through to the final and win it all. Of course, every team is that way because they all have a chance at that. But look at the amazing things that have happened in this season for this team. No one expected us to get, we had at least 50% of all of the experts picking against us against the Islanders.
Right, round one.
Then
Fetch went down, right?
Yeah, they said, well, that's it. They're done. And what about how we did against the Devils? We won in 5. I looked at that. I didn't even pick the Hurricanes to win that season or that series rather. So my mind, everything in my mind said, it's going to be too much against a team like that. They've got this kid goaltender that reminds me of Cam Ward that's caught a heater and beaten all-star offense. And now we have to play against them and we don't have those type of scores. Mm-hmm. It's going to be impossible. And they won. There is so much to feel good about. How about selling out selling out so quickly the Stadium Series? How about a glorious hat trick by Jarvis on Cam Ward night against the team that shall not be named? There is so much good.
Maybe that's what we need. So, and maybe we'll do this for Chrissy and everybody else. Maybe I'll start a thread on Twitter or social media, just like post your favorite GIF or your favorite photo from the year, and give us don't just post, but context, right? Because there were so many amazing memories. Hurricanes finished 3rd in attendance in the league. If you take the Stadium Series out, I think they dropped to 5th or 6th out of 32 teams. Phenomenal. They were
great.
9th in percentage, 99.6% of all tickets sold for the Hurricanes. Those are huge numbers. The Stadium Series game, the Hall of Fame game, it just goes on and on. So I agree with you. It's one of those things where it's hard to do, And I kind of quoted Ted Lasso. It hurts, right? But what hurts worse is doing it alone. And the Caniacs aren't alone, right? You can hop
Nope.
on, like everybody's there. People are still watching. People are still talking about the season and the epic things that happen. So
Yeah.
that's how you get those.
Take heart, because we've got a lot of promise.
They're going to be better next year.
Yeah,
They should be
100%.
better next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
and
But
this
it's
is
a
our
good
best team in a
question.
while.
It's understandable to feel that way. I'll tell you what, Brad, and hopefully this will. Sorry, and who is the person who asked this? Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Chrissy. Okay, so Chrissy, maybe you've heard me talk about this on the program in the past. Do you know the type of pain, Brad, that I felt at the end of this? Very, very close. It was triggering of the Whalers losing in 93 against the team that shall not be named, when Ivan Korovo beats Wah like a rented mule, clanks it off the bar, and then Courtnall down at the other end gets a shot, that a seeing eye shot, and beats Pietrangelo.
Mm-hmm.
It triggered that for me, and that is a pain that was so it was devastating. So I get that funk.
The man remembers
I
it 20,
understand
30 years later. Yeah.
it was, it stays with you. But honestly, just look at the wonderful things that this team has done, and I think you can get past it.
Absolutely.
That's the best way to get past it. Great question.
Our friend Computer and Coin, Nancia, former guest.
Yes.
Always still love seeing her videos. Her end of the season.
Aren't they great?
Phenomenal. She said, "What do you recommend for a newer fan to prepare for the start of the new season?" She started the middle of last year, so this will be like her first season.
Her first off season.
So to kind of be brief, you have the draft coming up in about a month. And then as of July 1st, you can start signing your unrestricted free agents. If that's when kind of things open up.
Mm-hmm.
And that in and of itself is kind of its own game. It's interesting to see. Like the draft is always kind of fun, but once free agency hits, that's when you start to see who's going to get better, who's going to get worse, potentially. Sometimes, even like the Canes, sometimes you deals come out of left field that nobody saw coming. That's kind of some of the fun speculation is you'll start hearing rumors and it gets, more and more and more. And then the rumor's wrong and something takes a complete, U-turn and like something else happens. You're like, oh, like nobody saw that coming. That's kind of the fun part. So I would say don't get too caught up in the expert analysis because, until things are announced, they're speculating and there's a lot of talk, but to get a deal done is more than just talk, right?
Yeah.
Know with the Hurricanes, know with Don Wendell, you're going to be on every single UFA because that's just who Don is. That doesn't mean you're going to be serious about them all, but is he going to call to inquire about every UFA on the market that could help this team? Yeah, he's at least going to call and say, hey, like just, what might it take to get this done? Like that's just how he's going to do it. I would like to see, I think a lot of people would, I think Tulsky needs to be bumped to GM instead of an assistant GM. Let Don Waddell retain president. That would be my biggest offseason move if I could just pick a move out of the hat. But and then once free agency starts to die down a little bit and teams start to get a little more settled, training camp. The cool thing about being in like the Eastern Conference Finals or the Stanley Cup Finals is the offseason just became real short because for all those fans whose teams stopped playing in April, they've already had a long summer. They've already had 6 weeks of golf and fishing and whatever else they do.
Yeah.
But not the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes had roughly 6 more weeks of hockey. Makes the off season a little shorter. So definitely, check out the draft. There's some great folks out there tracking the Storm podcast, Canes Prospect, those folks that they kind of know what's up. I probably, most of us follow those folks already, but it's kind of a sport unto itself if you enjoy it. And if you don't, then just chill. And then, that
Breathe,
first week
because
of
we've been,
October, games will start. So
yeah, we were holding our breath through all of this, right? So very nervous, very exciting, sitting on the edge of your seat, watching these games. It was exciting. So breathe. That's your first thing.
mhm.
Second, and I think that the organization itself should award me with something for this next bit of advice that I'm giving to Nancia. Nancia, save a little bit of money. Okay. Contact the sales department and get yourself a package of some sort for seats for the coming season. You've had a chance to go see a few games every now and again or whatever. Pick yourself up a package where if you can go the full season, be a season ticket holder, our community, the Caniacs, will be better for it because you are a fantastic fan and you will love it. You will absolutely love it. If you cannot afford that much, smaller package, 10 games, whatever, pick them out, be ready, and then wait until after. And the last thing, wait until after the free agency thing is done and we've got most of the team together, and then take some of that money and pick the player that you wish to support the most and get that jersey. The sweaters are great.
Definitely
I
wait on that
love
one.
all the gear that she has. She's got a lot of Carolina gear, but I don't know that she has a jersey just yet. Pick your favorite. Pick your favorite, who you love. Don't let anyone push you one way or the other either. It's your decision. If you see a player out there that you like and he's around next season, get that jersey. Get that jersey.
I like it.
Yeah.
Come to Boston for a game. Go to Calgary for a game.
Go to Calgary for a game. That would be so much fun. That would be so much fun. I love that. Do a little traveling. That's great. Fantastic from her. Thank you so much for everything that she's done this season.
Absolutely.
Honestly,
Incredible, and helping grow the game, which is something the NHL does poorly, and Nancy does really, really well.
As she does, 100%. What's up next?
Next question. Just because I'm looking at time. Mark Hosen said, the only player I want to keep out of the free agency pool is McEachern and Stahl as a fourth line center. Lajoie, Fast, and the goalies, based on money.
Yeah,
which sounds totally reasonable. He recommends trading Shea and Teravainen because they both have a year left. Trade them while their value's high. And it says don't want players, Stastny, Stepan, Puljujärvi, Coughlin. We kind of went through this a little bit earlier, minus the trading of like Shea and Teravainen. I don't want to give up on Turbo.
I don't want
I'm a
to
huge
either.
Turbo fan. I think having turbos, I think was his grandfather die. I think affected him a lot more than people realized. That was a big thing on social media for a little bit about, how long, does that take? It takes as long as it takes.
Yeah.
I lost my mom almost 15 years ago, and some days it's fine, and some days are really tough, right?
Yeah.
So, Shea and Pesci, we've said before, when they're on, they drive the team. The team wins.
Yep.
When they are cold, for some reason, they both seem to do it together. Things get ugly. The real question is, in my mind, do you re-sign Shea? Can you re-sign Shea, given all the other obligations you have next year? And when I say obligations, I mean next year you're looking at Aho, you're looking at Teravainen, you're looking at Martinook, you're looking at Stefan Nazin, Brady Shea, Brett Pesci, Jalen Chatfield are all UFAs. Then you have Nature's Jury, Jarvis Suzuki, and Jameson Rees are all RFAs. You have a lot of money to spend next year. So I don't know what to do because it depends on the money, right? And they seem to find a way to make it work. And guys like being here, and guys have taken discounts to stay. I I'm not. I've kind of said before, I'm not so high on almost any player that they're untradeable.
Right.
You know, for me, I'm willing to get rid of anybody if the price is right.
Yeah.
So would I be willing to trade Shea and Teravainen? Absolutely, I would. If you can make the team better and offloading one of those guys as the price, do it.
Yeah.
The real question for me becomes, you then have to replace them.
Mm-hmm.
And Shea, to me, is the harder of the two to probably replace because he was just on fire this year. Will that continue till next year? I don't know. Flip side, Teravainen, very off year for him.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't expect him to play that bad next year. So what do you do? And there's something to be said for chemistry. I mean, you have Brett Pesce there with Shea. I mean, two peas in a pod. Do you want to go down that path? However, next year, they're both unrestricted free agents. Can you afford to re-sign them both the way they're playing? I don't know that you can.
Yeah. You know what? I would say I don't know one way or the other if you can say for certain that we'll be able to either sign or trade Shea or Teravainen. What I will say is, of that list of everyone whose contracts end at the end of next season, one of them will be traded during the season, or perhaps even in this coming off season. One of them will. You guarantee it, because their value is high. And if you can't, like that, give me that list again. There was Chatfield, Pesce. Who else?
For defense next year, Shea, Pesce, and Chatfield are all unrestricted free agents.
Wow.
And
then
Burns and Slavin are the only two guys signed. So you only have 5 defensemen signed through next year.
They have to make a decision, and those are going to be hard signings, and they've earned more money. Chatfield has earned a huge raise.
Yeah.
Are you going to be?
He's going from 762,000 to millions.
Yeah.
Will
question.
And Pesce get that kind of raise? I don't know about that. But
yeah. So I would say I can't verify for sure, but I will say, don't get too comfortable in believing that there's lifers in this next group, because I believe one of them will be traded while they're hot to get a positive asset that they can keep for longer, rather than you don't want to keep them, be unable to sign them, and lose them for nothing. And that's the biggest
part of the business, right?
That's why it's so hard to be a GM in this league. No question. Good question. Very difficult one.
From the forward group, I kind of agree. Stahl, I think you need Stahl back if at all possible. Mm-hmm. I like McEachern, but he's, much like Stassi and Stepan, Puljujarvi, Coughlin, all those guys, it's not critical.
Nope.
The big thing there is he played really well and he makes minimal money, which, potentially let you reach out and maybe get another top 6 guy, top 3 guy maybe. So
100%.
Caniac Annie, who talked to a lot on social media.
She's a
any
great
idea
fan.
How long the boys stay in Raleigh before going back to their homes? And then secondarily, she heard Patches sold his Las Vegas home, which I already mentioned.
Yeah.
Is he calling Raleigh home now? Unfortunately for me and us is neither of us are in Raleigh, and I probably won't be in Raleigh for a couple more months since we have no Stanley Cup final games in Raleigh to go to. Most of the guys typically don't hang around super long. They're around for a couple weeks. I know Svechnikov is going home to finish rehab. He will actually be coming back from Russia, I think, in like mid to late July, he said.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the guys tend to kind of, the guys who don't live in Raleigh full time, kind of, they kind of, spread to the wind pretty quickly, and they tend to come back earlier. They want to get back and kind of get into a routine and start working out, and then start, hitting the gym, those kind of things. So a lot of the guys are probably gone. I would love it if people online are like, hey, I saw Patches at, I don't know, El Rodeo.
Yeah.
Saw Patches at Valley High today. in a couple of weeks, because that would be good news for the Hurricanes, right?
It would.
But yeah, for the most part, the guys who live elsewhere and whatnot, most of those guys are going to, they kind of want to get out and shake it off and spend family time. It's been a long time coming for a lot of them. And then they will be ready to come back. Typically, July, August is not uncommon for guys to start showing back up in the town, start
Yeah.
getting workouts in. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the best way to chill is to maybe, even if they have homes and stuff like there, but they've got family in Finland or Czechia or wherever, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just want to remove yourself completely from ground zero, and we'll call it that. That's a little dramatic, but you get the idea. And you can just flake and chill out, because you've got about 6-7 weeks, and then you got to come back and get back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And because everyone has bought into the culture that Rod has developed, which he denies completely that he's responsible. He says the players are the culture, but Rod, come on, stop deflecting.
Technically,
Everyone,
he was a player.
everyone, yeah, exactly. Everyone will want to come back. They know how close they were this year. They'll want to get back on it and be ready to go. So, yeah, I think they spread into the wind and go home and relax because they've earned it. They've very much earned their time away, and can't wait to see them back. Another good
100%.
question.
Yeah. Stephanie, I hope I say this right, Langerak says, who do you think the Canes will keep? And that we've kind of discussed that throughout this whole process.
Yeah.
Just to kind of to go through the names a little bit. I think Jesse is gone unless they can get him to sign. So because he's a restricted free agent, there's terms around what you can and can't offer him. Like you can't just offer him, $1 million and call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
So there's things you can and can't do, but I don't think Jesse comes back at $3 million anyway. I think Jesper Fast will be back. I think Mackenzie McEachern will be back. I think Stahl's back. I do not think Paul Stastny's back. He had a really good end of season, but it took him a long time to get rolling, and he's 37 years old. I don't think Stastny's back.
I don't know.
Stepan is a great guy, but I don't think Derek Stepan's coming back.
I gotta jump in just very.
Yes, sir.
I don't know if you heard his comments at the end of the interview day, garbage can day or whatever. They asked him where he would like to go, and essentially he said, "Well, I don't want to go to a team that sucks. I'm old. I want a shot at the cup. I'd love to come back here or another contender." Essentially is what he said. Here or another contender. I'm not going to Arizona. Right. I'm not going to the team that shall not be named. Like,
in Paul's defense, his last contract for the Canes was $3.75 million.
Yeah.
If he'll come back on that fourth line for $1 million or $1.5 million or $2 million,
yeah,
maybe it's doable.
He'd have to take a haircut, no question.
Money, but big haircut.
Yeah.
Dylan Coghlan and Max Lajoie are both RFAs. Coghlan's gone. Lajoie might get re-signed. That's a toughie. As much as I like Max, he had a great year again with Chicago. It kind of depends on it. I think if he comes back, it's a two-way deal. DeHaan, I think, is gone. Gothis Bear is already for these tests the market. I don't know that he'll be back, although I'd like it to be back. Then once again, Anderson or Ronta, not both. You'll probably re-sign Slachenko. He's a G6, I think, category UFA. I think he'll be back in the HL.
I've got
Koch is gone, Gardner's gone, and then that leaves Max Pacioretty, who I think they'll sign if they can get, with 2 Achilles injuries in one season.
Yeah.
Oof. No team is going to risk it for $7 million. Like, he's not making $7 million. That's easy. The question is, what number does he want? Can he take a big haircut and play for bonuses?
Yeah.
And maybe
And that
somebody
would be the
better
way
with
to
the
do it.
CBA could tell me how much of his contract could be loaded, bonus and incentive based.
I've got a curveball name for you that we haven't talked about, but is in the background. And I hope I'm saying his name right. Nikushkin.
Oh,
What happens with him? Are we ever getting him, or is he just a pipe dream? What's the story?
Canes Prospects will put up his Bart Simpson meme for you. He is signed. So he signed in Russia through next season. Now, could they potentially buy out that contract for a few $1,000,000? Maybe. Unlikely.
Right.
Because we don't need him yet. Right. Next year, we have Shea and Pesci UFAs, and he'll be available to come to North America.
He's a
That's
fill-in.
when you're going to see it. He's. I think you will see Shea go and Pesci stay because he's coming over. But that's a great internal question there, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what? Blind pig finds a truffle every now and again.
Yeah. We got two more here because I
cool.
We're running long here, but former guest Eric, top 3 needs the Hurricanes should address in the offseason, possible player addition. So he's thinking, I think, names potentially. It's too early for me for names. And I'll make this short and sweet. You need a goal scorer. Max Pacioretty might be that goal scorer. You need somebody with finish. You need a power play coach is my number 2. That's not even a player. Rod needs to relinquish control of the power play. I know he likes to have a small coaching staff. Rod needs to suck it up and hire a power play coach that makes the power play go, that will ride those guys and get them to do what they should be doing. That's my number 2. So goal scorer, you need a power play coach to get the power play jump started. And then you're going to need scoring depth. Defense, I don't think is an issue. Goaltending, I don't think is going to be an issue.
Nope.
And by scoring depth, I don't, you need somebody who can just get in there and muck it up the way guys have. You need Jordan Martinook to come back and be Jordan Martinook from the Devils series again.
Yes.
Like now he was playing at 2 points a game in that series. You can't expect that.
No.
But do you need a third line or a fourth line guy who can go in there and just drive the play and keep things going? You do. And I think that's, and the reality is that these third and fourth line guys that we've had, they've upgraded continually. You want to do that again because of the system that they play. That's a necessity. You're going to need somebody who can score and muck it up. Maybe that's McEachern. I don't know. But, Mac looked really good on the first line. Can he take that same level of energy and get a couple points maybe on the fourth?
Yeah. Look, this is going to sound terribly flippant, and I don't mean it to be. I want to respect the question, but my answer, if you're looking for 3 things, is scoring, and scoring. We need guys that can finish. And if that means and I mean finish on a regular basis. It was awesome to see Natchez
finish with one N.
Yes, it was awesome to see Natchez really shake the problems that he had and have an amazing season, but he disappeared in the playoffs. Let's be honest.
He did. But I don't know how much of that is special related to.
Well, exactly. And that's
when you lose alignment of that quality, who's
is big.
And physical and takes the pressure off of you. That's huge.
Yeah, and it absolutely is. And I don't mean it to sound like crapping on Natchez, but it just, and Aho can't do it all. And Jarvis is going to be great. He's going to develop and grow. I mean, if I want to see one thing, I want to see Jarvis put on a few more pounds of muscle and continue playing that style that he plays. I love his style of play. I wouldn't have got a jersey of him without it. He's just that kind of guy that you love to see, and so young. He's learning and growing. He's going to be great. But really, scoring. And I'm sorry if that is flippant, but it is what it is. That's what we need.
We have so many guys who want to play unselfish hockey, which is great. Like that's what you want in a team hockey. But we need a person who's selfish enough to say, when the puck is on my stick, I'm taking a
shooting.
shot.
Yep.
Not my favorite player in the world, but there's a reason that Ovechkin is probably going to break the scoring record.
Yeah.
And it's because he is going to shoot the puck. I mean, it's just what he's going to do.
And he demands the puck too. Like he demands, like I'm over here at the face-off circle. You get that puck to me because I'm burying it, and that's what we need. We need that guy who wants it. We need a forward that plays like Burns.
Yeah,
Burns shoots all the time. He can deke. He tries to deke and score. You know what I mean? Or set up these unbelievable goals, which he did all year. We need another forward like that who can finish on a very high rate.
And conversely, going back to depth scoring, Stefan Noesen was elite during the playoffs. If we get a full season of that, that's what you want.
Nason was great.
Let Burns take, let him be the second or third highest average shots in the league.
Yeah.
But just make sure Nosen's got his, butt parked in the crease, trying to tip those things in. That's what it takes.
Cool.
We have time here for one more. Happy mom. And I love this question because it's how we're all feeling, I think. What really happened? Did they do all that they could to win? I just keep thinking, what did we miss? How could we have been swept? And I think that's how a lot of us, feel deep down. The best thing I can say to Happy Mom is people are going to talk about not picking up a score when Patches got hurt at the deadline. That's going to be a topic. There's no right and wrong answer because we don't know. Like, it didn't happen. It's all speculation. I can say that if Bobrovsky did not have the series literally of a century, the Canes win that series. I feel very confident in saying, I don't know that the Canes couldn't have maybe done something. Maybe there was scoring out there they could have picked up. Maybe if Timo Meier comes to the Canes, it's different. But you saw what he did in Jersey, right? So that doesn't mean that's how it translates. If he's here, maybe he plays great in Carolina. So taking those things out, because we'll just never know. I can tell you that if Bobrovsky does not play at the level he played at for those games, the Hurricanes win that series.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly, they are in the Stanley Cup Finals, and they have a real shot against the Stars or the Knights, whoever wins out. So I don't know that they did everything they could do, but if they didn't, they were awfully darn close.
I'll say two things, and I'll push back just a tiny little bit on everyone who points, and we've got good friends and podcasts who all love to point out, oh, look at how great the Islanders were with Bo Horvat. Oh, the Devils did fantastic with, Meier, right? And, it's fun to say that now, but understand, what does Bo Horvat do with the team that we have?
With a good team
surrounding.
If I'm being
exactly. Honest. Or the same goes for Timo Meier. Imagine Timo Meier with Natchez and Aho. Right? It's one thing to say that, oh, they got those guys and they didn't do anything and it sucked. Well, this sport, this game is not won by one player. It just isn't. Ask the Edmonton Oilers. They have two of those kind of players and they still can't do it, which blows my mind. So that's the first thing I'll say.
As far as you did, Caniac.
Maybe Horvat, maybe Meier, maybe one of those guys might have been the answer. But you're right, Brad. There is no way to know.
And I know that the takes for both of those looked, not incredible, like the Canes could have matched.
Yeah.
But let's say Jordan Martin goes back on one of those trades, and now you don't have his 2 points per game against New Jersey. I mean, we could speculate for hours and hours.
Yes, we could.
That's why I was saying for Happy Mom, like, we'll never know. But it took a phenomenal, it took a record-setting style goaltender to beat you. And that's nothing to be ashamed of.
Exactly. And the second thing that I was going to say was perhaps changing up the lineups, like I said, on the one answer, maybe going back to putting all your offensive eggs in one basket and your shutdown line all in one basket and go like that instead of spreading it out. That's one thing that maybe could have been done. But when you look at the responses after the game, like from everyone, you know, the bewilderment of what they were experiencing says they did everything they could. They know they've turned that mirror on themselves, and they still do. Martinook still says, well, what could I have done here? Or could I have done this? They did everything they could. And the way Bobrovsky played, it just, what do you do? They did everything they could. I mean, Jarvis kept going to the net. I mean, he had some beautiful touch deflections and stuff that were half an inch away from going in. And I mean, it was just crazy. I would suggest to you, they did feel good about knowing they did everything they could, just based on the bewilderment. Yeah. They'll question themselves, but they should also understand,
and they'll get better from it.
Good. And they will.
Losing for those guys is a powerful motivator.
It is, absolutely. You got to be through the fires, to forge stronger. Fantastic episode. Thank you to everyone who sent in the questions. Absolutely. We love this interaction. Whether or not you think our opinions mean anything or not, whichever, take a listen to them. Feel free when this gets posted. If you have issues with our takes or whatever, don't be afraid to respond. Brad, where do they find us?
At facebook.com/stormcellar97, on Twitter at stormcellar97, at Gmail at the same thing. So yeah, we're easy to find on any major podcast network. We're
100%.
Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, any of those.
Yeah, and if you love Brad's takes and think I'm on crack, feel free to tell me as much on Twitter at Judge Wapner 10. I love interacting. I love all of you. Thank you so much for giving us your ear for this episode. We've done so much. Brad, we can still do one more thing. And I still feel it, even though we're out.
100%.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us by email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.